All right, back in the brew house today, and I've got a project that involves some oak chips and some Brettanomyces clauseni, Brett C for short. I've never used this stuff before. It'll be a long-term project that will take an entire year to complete. But that's not what I'm doing today. Hey folks, it's brew day. It's been a while because back in March when the governor grounded everybody in Michigan, I bought ingredients for several batches and I brewed 3 in a row, bang, bang, bang. So I've had plenty of beer in the Keezer for a while, but I'm starting to run a little low. Thought I'd make another batch. I had some leftover grains from the ESBs I made. By the way, the Fuller's ESB didn't turn out much like Fuller's ESB. It was good beer, but it wasn't anything like Fuller's. So I'm taking some of the specialty ingredients I had left over from the Fuller's ESB attempt, and I'm modifying the recipe a little bit to make a best bitter. I'm still using the pale malt, 8 pounds this time instead of what I had before, 12. Reducing the gravity a little bit. It's a best bitter, not an ESB. I'm still using the Crystal 65. I believe that was Simpson's medium crystal. Same amount, 8 ounces. I'm eliminating the chocolate malt in this one. The Fuller's recipe for ESB had a little bit of chocolate, just 2 ounces. But I'm taking that out completely, and I'm adding some invert sugar, number 3 invert, about a pound of that, to give it a little color and body. East Kent Golding hops, that's all I'm using, a good amount of those. All right, my warthog control unit tells me I'm right at strike temperature, so it's time to dough in. Eight pounds of pale malt, 8 ounces of Simpson's medium crystal. It's about 65 Levibond. And then later in the boil, I'll add 1 pound of invert sugar, number 3. Yeah. Just gonna dump it all in. All right, I'm using a thinner mash than normal. And I have been using a thinner mash for a while now because I noticed that the temperature probe for the Warthog controller is right down there. I'm about 2 inches above the controller right now, 2.5. And if I was using a typical ratio, 1.3 to 1, I would just barely be over that temperature probe. So to make sure I'm getting accurate readings, I'm using a little thinner mash. So this is about almost 1.5 to 1. All right, good and stirred in. No dough balls. Let's put my recirculation arm in there. Turn the pump back on. And I'm shooting for a mash temperature of 156. And that's pretty close to what I got. I'm happy with that. All right, the mash is complete, 1 hour at 156 degrees, held steady the entire time. Now it's time to set up the hoses for the fly sparge. One of these days, I might just try batch sparging again. That's what I used to do all the time. always takes a little mental gymnastics here to figure out the flow from the hot liquor tank into the mash tun, from the mash tun out into the boil kettle. And I think I want to change this hose. I've got a kink. That looks better. All right. Nice light amber colored wort right there. I like it. All right, my mash and fly sparge are complete. I've got my boil volume right around 8 gallons. Now I'm just going to take a quick pre-boil gravity check. All right, I'll let this cool, take a reading, and find out where I stand. All right, so my Brix reading on the refractometer is about 7 to 7.2. That is about 1027, 1028 in gravity. And I'm supposed to be just a little over 1030, 1031 for a pre-boil gravity. But don't forget, I've still got the invert sugar to add later in the boil. Right now the boil has just begun. I'm going to put 1.5 ounces of East Kent Goldings to start. And begin my brew day timer. All right, the next step is in 30 minutes. That'll be my second edition of hops. And if you're eagle-eyed enough, you might have noticed a discrepancy in what I just said with what I posted in the recipe earlier. Instead of 1 ounce of EKG at 60 minutes, I just did 1.5. That was by design. I decided at the last moment to boost the bitterness a little bit. So it'll be 1.5 at 60, 1 ounce at 30, 1/2 ounce at 15 for a total of 3 ounces of East Kent Golding hops. Why? Because it's my recipe and I decided to do it that way. No, seriously, it's because I already had some open hops, and doing it this way allows me to utilize all my already open packages. All right, there goes my timer. Let me turn the radio down before the YouTube copyright police get on my case. Last edition of hops. And I'm going to turn my my pump on again, start recirculating through the chiller, get that sanitized in the last 15 minutes. But first, I want to flush out all the water that's in here from cleaning just a few minutes ago. So, no! Hold the bus. I forgot the invert sugar. So I drew off a saucepan of wort from the boil kettle, and I mixed most of the invert in there, dissolved it all, rather than let it settle to the bottom. If you pour that in just direct from the jar, it'll just settle to the bottom and stick on the bottom of your boil kettle and your heating elements and cause a big mess. I'm just trying to get the last of it from the jar, put a little boiling wort in there. Yeah, and get all of this invert number 3. It took me long enough to make it, so I want to use it all. There we go. Whew. It's a good thing I remembered that. All right. It's the last bucket full. I've got to drain my boil kettle like 2.5 gallons worth at a time, because I brew in the garage way over that way and I ferment downstairs, and I can't carry a full fermenter or a full batch of beer, 5-gallon batch of beer down the stairs with my back problems. So I do it, I clean and sanitize the bucket, do it 2.5 gallons at a time. Takes me 2 or 3 trips, but there it is. And it looks like I'm a little shy on my volume. I did boil an extra amount of time to get that invert sugar fully incorporated. So, and I started with less than normal too. So I lost a little volume. It's okay. Now here's my yeast starter. This was a shaken, not stirred starter, and what that is in a nutshell, whatever size vessel you are using, you want to make your yeast starter volume 1/4 the size. So I have a gallon jug. I made a 1 quart starter. Put the wort in there, pitch the yeast, put a cap on it. It's one of the tricks with this method. You have to have a vessel that you can cap, and just shake the hell out of it for about a minute, 2 minutes if you can muscle it. What you want to do is fill half of this vessel up with foam that aerates your starter. Put an airlock on it or cover it with tinfoil like I do, and just set it aside. 8 hours max is all it takes. I made this at 10 in the morning. I don't know what time it is now. Sometime early afternoon, mid-afternoon, and already it had a nice half-inch krausen on top of it, so it's active. Oh, by the way, the yeast was taken from the yeast cake from the last Fuller's ESB attempt I made. So it's proven yeast. It has been sitting in the fridge for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But like I said, it had a nice big krausen on it after just 5 hours or so. So I think it's happy yeast. I think it's going to work. I've done it before. It does. Okay, that's done. Put the lid on. Get the airlock going. I'm going to do a blow-off tube because that yeast is probably going to take off real fast. And I'm done. Brew day is over. Hey folks, it's brew day, and I just spit all over the place. I hope you saw that. Yeah? Maybe for the outtake reel.